I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years.
Nothing has brought me greater joy than watching the Walt Disney Company absolutely panic over the last few weeks. They're mad at South Park because they're making fun of their woke ideologies, constantly race swapping or religion swapping everything in their movie.
They didn't just mock Rachel Zegler, they obliterated her. When South Park zeroed in on Disney's shaky Snow White remake, it didn't just fan the flames. It blew the whole thing up. What started as backlash over her casting erupted into chaos, and South Park threw gasoline on the fire. The episode ruthlessly parodied her and Disney alike, echoing and escalating every brutal criticism the internet had already unleashed.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler and her attitude towards South Park Studios and Paramount after learning about what they are planning for their upcoming special called the DEI Special.
Zegler's name rocketed to the top of trending charts within hours. Memes swarmed timelines, clips went viral, dissected, and remixed nonstop. Some laughed, others winced, but no one stayed silent. Whether people backed the remake or trashed it, they all chimed in. The parody didn't just mock Rachel. It weaponized her own interviews, turning her words into punchlines and sound bites into explosive punchy jabs.
Last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And that's when I started to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced. And finally I want to scream and I'm like, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse?
Just like that, Disney's next fairy tale crumbled into a pop culture meltdown. The second South Park aired its takedown, chaos erupted. What followed wasn't just backlash, it was a PR disaster soaked in satire. In their upcoming DI special, a sequel to the Savage Pandaverse episode, Rachel Zegler wasn't portrayed as a clueless celeb. She was blown up into a full-blown caricature straight from the internet's angriest corners. No filters, no subtlety, just raw spectacle. Animated Rachel stormed sets, hijacked scenes, and launched into loud, preachy rants about how the original Snow White was outdated poison.
Even if everything worked perfectly, it would have been almost impossible for this movie to succeed because you're comparing it to one of the most beloved films of all time and a truly groundbreaking movie.
She wasn't just dismissive, she was militant. Animated Rachel stormed through every scene, barking over co-stars, scoffing at scripts, and unloading endless monologues about equity and modern salvation through progress. Romance? Tradition? She called it all toxic trash, ripping into the original Snow White like it was a personal enemy. The brilliance of South Park's parody wasn't just its insanity, it was how uncomfortably close it hit to Rachel's real interviews. Sure, it was exaggerated, but it didn't feel fake. It felt sharp, brutal, and eerily real. As she hijacked every moment, cartoon execs and castmates just stood there, cringing, too scared to push back, afraid they'd be the next one steamrolled.
On the original production, I was scared of it. Oh, it was so weird. It was the stalker. Like, I feel like if you are taking on the most iconic Disney role ever, genuinely, like this was the most prolific Disney film, I feel like you should kind of have some sort of reverence for the original production.
And the craziest part, it all felt disturbingly close to things she'd actually said. But the real shock came after the parody aired. What happened behind the scenes flipped everything upside down. At first, it looked like a dream gig. Rachel Zegler, hot off her acclaimed West Side Story debut, was hailed as the next big star. Disney unveiled her as the face of their bold Snow White reboot, calling her the perfect icon for a new era of fairy tale heroines. The film was pitched as a fresh fusion of old-school Disney charm and modern messaging. Glowing press releases flooded out, industry voices applauded the bold move, and Rachel beamed about inspiring young girls everywhere. The PR machine was primed to soar. But that shiny fairy tale, it started cracking almost instantly. The backlash rolled in before the magic even had a chance to begin.
I don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely when it got announced.
White! He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
Thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Fans of the 1937 classic weren't exactly celebrating. Casting a Latina actress as Snow White, a character literally named for her pale skin, ignited a storm of debate. But the uproar wasn't just about casting, it was about Rachel's own words. In interview after interview, she bashed the original, calling it weird and outdated, mocking the prince as a stalker, and insisting that Snow White no longer dreams of love. She dreams of power. For many, it wasn't just a remake anymore. It felt like a rejection of everything the story once stood for.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
Not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
And this started with the movie star Rachel Zegler, who I believe would be categorized as a loudmouth dope.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
The
Our
right to buy
reproductive
Cosby
rights.
sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face
Go
of a
vote blue.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
And that is why we hate the diversity, equity, and inclusion casting and writing in movies.
In addition to that, there was already an uproar about her being cast as Snow White because she is not Caucasian, she is a Latina, she is half Colombian, and so people were like, why were you cast in the first place? We just had a black Little Mermaid, now we're having a Latina Snow White, and she's literally called Snow White, this doesn't make sense. Yeah, the entire film's about a love story. It's about a love story because that's what the point of the film is, and I'm sorry that chivalry in a man pursuing you is now deemed as stalking, which now it's kind of making sense why men are opting out of the dating scene. As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way.
They didn't just roast Rachel Zegler, they dismantled her. When South Park pointed its merciless lens at Disney's chaotic Snow White remake, the internet didn't blink. It detonated. The casting controversy was already brewing, but once Trey Parker and Matt Stone entered the chat, the slow simmer became a wildfire. They didn't tiptoe, they torched. The episode mirrored every complaint fans had been screaming online, then dialed it up. Zegler's name rocketed to the top of trending lists. Memes flooded feeds. Clips of the parody went viral. Dissected, remixed, turned into digital shrapnel. Some fans laughed, others winced, but everyone had something to say. The writers used Rachel's own words like landmines, her interviews repurposed into biting one-liners. The parody didn't just poke fun, it weaponized her entire PR trail, and just like that, Disney's so-called revival turned into a catastrophe. The second the South Park special dropped, the situation exploded. This wasn't just a comedy sketch, it was a full-blown cultural autopsy. Zegler wasn't just depicted as misinformed, she was transformed into a chaotic, narcissistic caricature, loud, theatrical, and oblivious. The parody showed her barging onto sets, hijacking scenes, and preaching about how the original Snow White was outdated, offensive garbage. She wasn't just critical, she was militant. She snapped at co-stars, dismissed any creative input, and launched into never-ending monologues about progress. In every scene, she interrupted, condescended, and proclaimed herself the one brave soul fighting toxic nostalgia. The satire stung because it wasn't random, it echoed her real interviews. The cartoon was exaggerated, sure, but not by much. It felt disturbingly accurate. As she bulldozed through the fake Disney scenes, cartoon execs and castmates stared in horror, paralyzed, unsure whether to speak or stay silent and avoid becoming the next casualty. And the craziest part, a lot of it felt real. But the real chaos started after the special aired. At first, Rachel's casting was seen as a dream gig. She was fresh off the success of West Side Story, hailed as a breakout talent with a killer voice and major screen presence. Disney hyped her as the perfect modern princess, the new face of a reimagined Snow White for today's world. The press ate it up. Rachel called it an honor and said she hoped to inspire a new generation of girls, but it all crumbled fast. Fans of the 1937 original were already annoyed. Casting someone who didn't match the source character's name and look was one thing, but casting someone who openly mocked the original, that was something else entirely. In interviews, Rachel didn't hold back. She called the classic weird, said the prince was a stalker, and claimed Snow White no longer cared about love. Now she wanted power. For many, this wasn't progressive. It was a gut punch. Then South Park hit, and the gloves came off. Parker and Stone, infamous for skewering pop culture, politics, and religion, took all the controversy, fan anger, and media noise, and funneled it into one savage hit piece. The DI special was a follow-up to their Panderverse episode, and it didn't just roast the film. It obliterated it. The parody was so brutal, so close to real events, that viewers were stunned. South Park didn't just mock casting or script changes, it dismantled Disney's obsession with performative progress. Every satirical line echoed Rachel's real statements. They weren't hiding it. They wanted everyone to notice. And they did. Fans flooded social media with side-by-side videos comparing her real quotes to the parody. The resemblance was undeniable. That's when things spiraled. Sources close to Rachel said she was furious. She felt blindsided and humiliated. To her, this wasn't just an animated jab. It was a hit job on her integrity. She saw herself as a woman of color trying to push boundaries in an industry that resisted change. But now, that mission was being mocked, reduced to punchlines and memes. She wanted to speak out, to defend herself. But Disney stepped in. Hard. Behind the scenes, the studio went into panic mode. Emergency meetings were held. PR teams went into overdrive. Their decision? Total blackout. Rachel was told, no tweets, no interviews, no Instagram posts. Disney didn't want clarification. They wanted silence. Any response, even a measured one, could reignite the fire, so they canceled it all. Red carpets, talk shows, even a rumored SNL appearance. Publicly, they blamed scheduling conflicts. Privately, they were trying to stop the bleeding.